Good morning, everyone. My name is Maxime Baffert. I'm the general manager of Viva Technology. We are another event coming very soon in Paris, and we are very proud to be partner of Sustainable Brands Paris. For this session, which is, as it was just said, is a little provocative, do good, act good, and become rich. We have today 3 startuppers that are going to discuss this subject, and I'm going to ask them a first question, the most difficult one. Can you introduce your startup in 1 minute and explain what kind of positive impact you are looking to have? Estelle, maybe starting with you.
Hello, everyone. So I work for IMPAK Finance. Our mission is to fuel capital towards impact businesses. So there are 2 ways to do it, and it's consumption and investments. So what we have developed is a tool to score the impact of any business, and we are promoting impact businesses through towards citizens, businesses, and investors. So what we're doing is, let's say you want to buy a coffee before coming here this morning. Instead of going to Starbucks, you would go to an impact coffee shop that we have qualified, and you will get your coffee there and be rewarded with impact coins, which is a digital currency. It's the mix between a complementary currency and a loyalty program. So we make the responsible consumption easier and reward it through the impact coin.
Thank you. Mathias, what about Doconomy?
Doconomy is a mobile banking service, and our ambition is to future-proof planet Earth using transactions as a tool for change. So we impact calculate every transaction you make, and we hope to, instead of using traditional banking services to turn into greed, we aim to turn it into green. And it's a banking service for anyone that has been getting sick of thinking and hoping and dreaming and talking. That's why we call it do. It's time to do.
Absolutely. What about you, Olivier, with Karos?
Karos is a company that leverages artificial intelligence and geolocation technologies in order to make it finally really possible to carpool on daily commutes, basically to go to work. We've built an app that works as a kind of a smart assistant and understands your daily habits, predicts your next rides, and finds you automatically people who can share a ride with you. So this enabled our users to carpool very easily and to already make 1.2 million carpools to date, which obviously has a major impact on the CO2 emissions reduction.
All right, so to start the conversation, all the 3 of you are working for startups. It's actual startups. You have raised funds. You are striving to make them bigger, to develop. Why did you choose startups to have a positive impact instead of maybe going to NGOs, governments, other forms of actions? Why do you think startups are the right actors to have a positive impact? Mathias, you want to start?
I think it's a very good question, and I think that part of the challenges today is that we as people and humans, we tend to do the same thing over and over again. To change the status quo, you need to challenge. And companies with a setup based on a legacy that they need to protect, with bonus systems they need to protect, shareholders they need to protect, market shares they need to protect. As a startup, you can challenge that. You can drive change, and you don't have to protect anything but where you want to go. So I think a startup as a platform is a pretty good starting point. But as a previous speaker said earlier, this is all about collaboration. You can't say, don't go to the NGO, don't go to civil society, don't go to the old world companies. We all need to collaborate. I mean, we got into this mess together, we need to get out of it together.
Yeah, I agree with Mathias. Definitely startups is a great way to innovate because you have the right to wake up one day and be crazy enough to say, this is not existing, it doesn't make sense, let's try to do it. Without a lot of money, just trying to talk to people and understand why they're not doing it and what we could develop to do it. But this is not enough. In our case, clearly, our company, Karos, is bringing a technology and a know-how, but we need large corporates and local governments to work with us to take this technology and to empower their citizens and their employees to use it in order to drive change. So it's really something that we need to do all together.
I think it's a great saying that stand on the shoulders of giants, you know.
And I would also add that most changes come from citizens, and at the end, the startups are citizens that are, driven by a project. So of course, we need to be supported by big organizations, companies, and governments. But we are starting the project,
And maybe to build up on this, Estelle, you mentioned that you have created a cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency is not necessarily connected to positive impact. There are sometimes negative aspects, speculation, etc. Do you think it's a good tool, or why have you decided to create one? Do you think it's a good tool to reach a positive impact?
well, today we are all using money every day, and this money is mostly national currencies or regional currencies like euros or dollars. So with cryptocurrencies, we have a new way to exchange goods or services, and we can have new rules. I mean, the national currencies are created by banks through debt, and with cryptocurrencies we have new rules. So, for example, with the IMPAK coin, firstly we are using a low energy consumption blockchain. So we don't use as much energy as Bitcoin, for example. But when we are creating an IMPAK coin, it's based on a real transaction with an impact business. So it's based on the real economy. And whenever there is a transaction made, an IMPAK coin is created. So it's not through debt. And plus, it also takes into account any social or environmental positive aspects. So that's another thing.
Okay. And Olivier, your startup, we know that if you take Californian startups, a lot of their business model is based on catering the affluent, the wealthy people. I think your startup is interesting because you try to reach not the metropoles, not the big cities, but you try also to work with poorer parts and less affluent citizens. Can you tell us a little bit about this?
Sure, you're right that VC money is usually funding the micro-mobility in hyper centers, and historically the Uber and the likes for ride-hailing, for taxi-like services. And we do 85% of our usage outside of city centers. For instance, in Paris, in Grande Couronne, so all the départements that are on average 60 to 100 kilometers far from here. And so we are trying to develop a kind of new public transportation system for these people living far from city centers and needing to go from one place to another in suburbs. The car is costing for them a lot of money, around 4,000 to 5,000 euros per year. And they are making with Karos on average 97 euros of savings per month. So obviously this can be something which is very little for affluent people living in city centers, but it's actually something that changed the lives of our users because basically they don't pay for gas anymore, and it changes. It's a big thing for them. Yeah.
So I have another question, which is all your startups, the idea behind is to take actual money, investment, consumption, and bring it to a new form of initiatives that are positive. So there is this idea of transitioning. How do you see this transition working now? Do you think it's starting? Do you think we are at full speed? What do you think, Estelle, maybe?
Well, we are definitely not at full speed. There is still a lot to do, but we also see, a lot of big players like financial institutions, for example, are now taking into account the social and environmental impacts into their business. Of course, financial returns is still the first thing that they are considering, but we are seeing more and more big players that know that they have to take this into account. And again, I think it's because they have pressure from citizens, but also from their investors.
And Mathias, so you are working with banks, big institutions. How is the relationship with them, and how do you make them aware of the challenges?
Most large banks that I come across are either really scared or extremely friendly.
Okay, or both.
Or both. So, but I think that no matter the industry, the financial industry or services or other industries, I mean, most of us see the need for change. And I think that conferences like this and initiatives like yours are great examples. But the thing that I find the most useful is that we've established a language for change. Like the SDGs, it's a language for change. It's symbols that anyone can relate to, no matter if you're a politician or if you're a student. CO2 is a language. ESG is a language. And it's a language that everyone knows and can share. And that's why I think change will be faster in this area than in many other areas before. And of course, using new technology as a catalyst for this change is also extremely, extremely good. If it's going slow or fast, I don't know. We're just desperate, working like crazy rabbits. So I'd say in our perspective, in our little world, we're doing everything we can.
And Olivier, you are working with public transportation authorities, large companies as well. What is your feeling about this in France?
Our feeling is that things are moving pretty quickly, actually, in our case. But users, people, are really paving the way, clearly. They are showing, I mean, for instance, if we've signed with large corporates like Airbus, Accor, Crédit Agricole, etc. In many cases, actually, the contract comes after users which are employees of these companies, and we are going to their HR managers saying, this is fantastic, we should have 20% of our workforce on this platform, and it will change the way we come and go. We come to work and we go back because we meet lots of people, because we reduce our carbon footprint, because we save money on gas, etc. So it makes sense. So definitely, again, it's much easier to move as a person than as a large corporate. But what is great is that when you have a B2C approach with an app, you give the power to employees and to citizens to tell managers and to tell politicians as well to change the way they operate.
Sorry, you want to?
Yeah, we have a question from the floor from our activators. Hi there. So we talked yesterday with the investors and about some of the metrics that they're following. But what we're interested in is whether you guys are building in any KPIs to measure sort of impact and sustainability into your businesses and into your business models.
Yeah. So yeah, of course we have to. Otherwise, it's just talking. So actually, what we are doing at IMPAK is that we have developed a tool to score the impact of any business. So we obviously have developed KPIs based on the impact management project methodology, which is an international one. And these KPIs are the baseline to be able to do real impact and to show some improvement in the future. So, and this is actually what big corporations or financial institutions are starting to look at.
And just maybe Olivier, Mathias, when you discuss with your investors, are they interested in these KPIs as well, or are you just into traditional startup KPIs, number of users, growth, etc.?
To be honest, not that much. They are definitely looking at how many users do we have, how many carpools do we make, and what's the long-term revenue we can make on each carpool, basically. But to come back on the question for our clients, actually, part of our solution sold to corporate clients and to local transportation authorities or local authorities is a metrics deck and an access to a SaaS platform where they can actually measure CO2 emissions reduction, microparticles emission reduction, etc. So this is actually really key for our clients because it can feed their reports, internal and external, in terms of our carbon footprint.
Mathias, with your investors, do you discuss sustainability KPIs?
Yes, and I think that the KPIs are extremely important, not only to follow and monitor your progress, but also to identify if it's a good or a bad investor, because there's a kind of notion that every investor is a good investor and you should be happy because someone wants to invest. And I think there couldn't be more risky. You need to have investors that understand what you're after and has a ethos that is reflecting yours and is driven by the same KPIs. So identifying the KPIs, extremely important out of a business perspective, but also out of an emotional and purpose perspective. So there is investors out there with a lot of money that doesn't want to do good, that just look at the traditional, you know, okay, how much money can we squeeze out of this green thing? And then there is good investors, in my perspective, good investors that understand that there's a shift. There is a shift in responsibility, and we need to step up to this together as producers and consumers. Mm-hmm. And those investors are much more interested in what kind of KPIs can we develop together that we value? Is it CO2 emissions reduced? Is it a change of behavior? Is it climate compensation projects funded? Or how do we measure up?
But the good news is that both metrics that we were discussing are in any case connected, yes. Because in our case, the more people carpool, the more there is CO2 emissions. So in any case, interests are aligned. So that's good news.
My last question would be, behind the title of this session, there is the idea that within the current system, by changing KPIs, by using startups to do good, we can actually have an impact. But the question is, do you think it is at the level of the challenges that we have from an environment perspective? Do you think so we can, inside this system, by driving investment consumption, we can really tackle climate change, etc.? Will that be enough? That's
cars is only 30% of CO2 emissions, roughly. And we need to be really humble. What we are doing is growing at 15 to 20% per month. People are discussing with their friends and colleagues and saying, this is great, you should come. But it's a start, really. So it's very promising, but it's one little thing to act for against climate change. And obviously there are many, many others. So in our case, we're just thinking that we are trying to show the way, and it will be some effect. I mean, it's part of the revolution you were talking about earlier.
Estelle?
Well, yeah, I think we are all collaborators, and we are all doing everything we can. But of course, we need to do more, and we need to work with the big players. So I think, in my opinion, the question is more about. Well, I'm not sure it's going to be soon enough. I think it's going to happen, but when is the question? And I don't have the answer.
I think everybody wishes they had. Mathias, do you have the answer?
Yes. No, but either we all lay down and die, or we try to do something about it. And I think that there is a lot of good examples, especially here today out in the halls, with lighthouses showing the way. We're not there yet. We have quite a lot of ground to cover in order to get to the bottom of this problem. And we need good examples. And I think if you see good examples as inspirational, most parts of the world will step up to the challenge and follow suit. And there is one thing I would like also to say is that we can't be afraid of failing. You know, if we are afraid of failing, we would just be paralyzed by the fact that we are going in a place we don't want to go. So failing doesn't necessarily have to be bad, as long as we all learn from it as a collective. And I think that what surprises me, or what I'm happy about, is that the startup community is so inviting and friendly, and everyone is looking to support each other. And I think that is a very, very, very good thing.
Maybe I have a promising metric to give to you in terms of what's going to happen. 85% of our active users are aged between 18 and 38 years old. So we have a generation coming up now that really wants to change. And it's again, how is this generation be able to make big players move, in our case, large corporates and local authorities?
Thank you very much. Thank you for all this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sustainable Brands. And have a good rest of the day.